We begin tonight with a mother who's admitted escaping managed isolation with her 4 children. The mother, who Checkpoint cannot name for legal reasons, says she was panicked. Her children were extremely distressed and she had no other options after being left in limbo by authorities. The family that lives in Australia returned to New Zealand after the children's father died unexpectedly from a stroke. The woman says they watched him take his last breath via video link and then travelled to Auckland the next day with the intention of applying for a compassionate exemption to attend his tangi. 4 members of the family yesterday pleaded guilty in the Hamilton Youth Court after climbing over a wall at their isolation hotel. 4 of them were caught almost immediately, but the woman's 17-year-old son was able to get to Auckland. The family was in isolation in Hamilton when their initial request for an exemption was turned down. So the 37-year-old mother made a second application to view the man's body before he was buried.
Plan B was to have their father brought down to a facility that was only 5 minutes down the road. We were told that it was used during the level 4 lockdown. It was a managed facility, and that the Army, the Defence and the isolation management team were backing our plan to facilitate a visit for him to be viewed in this facility. So we had everything put in place, just 5 minutes down the road so that my children could say goodbye. So that was what we were waiting for. That was in the morning that it happened. We were told we would get an answer at 4 o'clock that afternoon. So we're also in communication with the family back in Auckland that were with the body. And so everyone's basically waiting for the all green. 4 o'clock came, we had no answer. We were told at 4 o'clock to wait till 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, still no answer. We were then told we'd get an answer at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, I spoke with my family. They asked, what was happening. They needed to know because it was getting, it was quite late, and we don't move the body at night time. Uplifting their father's body at night time is quite distressing to the family and to us. And we still hadn't got our answer at 6. And about 6:30, I think maybe 6:15, a police officer did phone me. And he did say that he was the officer that would be supervising if we get released, but he didn't have an answer, and that he would get back to me at 8 o'clock.
So,
at this point, sorry.
To be clear, the tangi was planned for the very next day, was it?
Yes, it was now about 13 hours until he was going to be buried. It was the following morning at 10 o'clock he was to be buried.
Commodore Webb has stated publicly that the family was told that your application was looking positive and there would be a decision by 8 p.m. that night.
No, we were never told that the application was looking positive. We were never, ever given that indication. All we were being told was 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock. This is all that was happening throughout the day. We were never told. If I had been told that, we would not be in this predicament. This would never have happened. We would never have left the facility.
So did they tell you that to expect a decision by 8 p.m?
They said I would get a phone call at 8. So at 4 o'clock, we would get a phone call at 5. At 5 o'clock, we would get a phone call at 6. At 6 o'clock, still had no word. I made contact with my family because they were sitting there waiting for a decision. Then I got a phone call about 6:15 to say we would get a phone call at 8 o'clock. We were never told that it was looking promising, that it was nothing like that was said.
So what did you decide to do?
So at that point, I was looking at my children. They were looking at me because we were waiting for an answer, and all my children were doing was sitting there crying, looking confused, and I just looked at them, and I was just really hurt. I felt like I had failed them as a mother. It's very hard to look at your children, especially my youngest. She was broken. And so at that point, my children wanted to leave and go to their father. And so it was just a decision made on the spot. It's time to go to your father. And so we did leave the facility.
How did you do that? Can you explain to me how you got out?
How I got out, I did. There was a window in the there was a window in our room. Basically, I just there were 2 screws in the window, and I did use something to unscrew the latch on the window.
What was that? Do you remember?
I just used something from the kitchen, and I just used it to unscrew the latch. Nothing was broken. There was nothing broken. The window was not damaged. It was just 2 screws that hold the latch to the window, and I just unscrewed it, just like you would with a screwdriver.
And then what?
And then I opened the window, and my daughter, we all just left the facility through the window and over a fence. And
where were you going to? Because the body obviously was in Auckland at this point. So what was the plan from this point onwards? I wasn't sure if this was even doable. You know, I got to say that I wasn't sure if this was doable. I didn't even think that we would make it past the actual fence. Once I got out, I jumped over and I saw that it was, and my daughter followed. And so basically once we got out, we just ran to the park across the road, and I wanted to catch a taxi to their father. And 4 of us were caught, and my son made it to Auckland, to where his father was. And keeping in mind too, we were aware of all the safety precautions that needed to keep in place. We had all had our masks on when we were caught. My son had his mask on, and the intention was just to see him, for my children to say goodbye to their father, spend some, you know, their father's last moments with his children. And I honestly believe that the system failed us, and we are where we are today. Did you call anyone or discuss with anyone your plans to escape isolation?
About 15, 20 minutes prior to, so we got the phone call from the officer to say to wait till 8 o'clock. Yes, I did.
So you called someone to let them know you were breaking out?
That I was leaving, that we had run out of time, yes.
Was that person coming to assist you by driving you to Auckland?
Yes, they were, but I didn't know that this was possible. So it was, if I get out, are you able to come down and get us?
Right. Because people listening to this will think that that's a plan, isn't it? That's a plan.
That is not a plan I made that decision after that phone call. If I had planned to escape, if this was premeditated, I would have gone the first day. I would have gone the second day. I would have gone the third day. This was done after that phone call, when I knew that we were running out of time. My children knew that they were running out of time.
Explain to me that split second where you make the decision. You realise this man, the father of your children, is going to be buried the next morning. You're waiting and you don't know if you will be able to take them there to see him for one last time. What is going through your head right then?
I was panicked. I was panicking. I was panicking because I was running out of time. My children were looking at me, waiting for me to give them that answer, that yes, Mum, we can, that yes, we can go. It all depends. They were just looking at me like I was the one they wanted the answer to come from me that we were allowed to go. And I was doing everything I possibly could in my power. I explored every single option. This was not a choice that I made. I did not come to New Zealand. I did not come here to ruin my life or my children's. I have a good job. I work in the aged care and disability sector in Australia. So I have built such a good life in Australia. I didn't plan for this to happen.
So why didn't you wait an hour and 45 minutes for that decision at 8 o'clock when they told you it would come at 8?
They told me that they would give me a phone call back at 8 o'clock. They told me they would give me a phone call at 4 o'clock. They told me they would give me a phone call at 5. They told me they'd give me a phone call at 6. Keeping in mind that the next morning he's about to be buried. And you also got to keep in mind that we have to transport his body it's an hour and a half from Auckland where he was laying and an hour and a half back. So, there's not much time to do all this. We were running out of time.
Was there any possibility that the tangi could have been delayed to enable you to go?
No, at this stage it was he had been laying about 5-6 days now, and from just looking at him through the video calls, it was time that he needed to go. His body was starting to deteriorate. I remember looking at his face through the video calls.
But earlier, could a decision have been made earlier? Knowing that you were coming from Australia and you may be faced with 2 weeks' worth of isolation and that you might not get an exemption, could a decision have been made then?
I honestly didn't believe that people would be so uncompassionate towards a situation like this that we would not be allowed to see their father. I can come to terms with us not seeing him being allowed to travel up to Auckland to his funeral, but why would they not give us the okay in the morning when this safe plan was put forward at about 9 o'clock in the morning, backed by all the staff, by the health board, by the army, by the defence, by the isolation management? Why could they not give us an answer that morning? Why were we left to wait into those hours of the night?
Do you think that they ever intended to give you the go-ahead to view the body?
Definitely not. Definitely not. This is their father. And I remember Air Commodore when he stated, what did he state? He said that we requested to attend a family member's funeral. He did not say, this was not just a family member. He failed to state that it was their father. This was not just a family member, an extended family member. This was my children's father.
Is there anything in his history or your family's history, do you think, that would have counted against you in terms of this decision?
I honestly don't know why they did this to us. I honestly don't understand why they did this to us, why we were different to everyone else.
You have to stay here now for sentencing, and that is some way off. What does it mean for you?
My job is at risk. We had only intended to come for the funeral, spend about a week or two with their father at the gravesite, and head straight back to Brisbane and obviously do 2 weeks isolation in Brisbane. We've been put off our court cases. My daughter's one is in September. I'm in the last days of August, and so have my other children. They've been put also in August. So we're going to be here for quite some time. And honestly, I don't regret what I did. I did what was right by my children. I honestly feel like they failed me and my family. I've lived in New Zealand all my life. I honestly believe that the system failed us. And it's just not just me in this. If you think about, people are going to die every day. This is going to happen. Families need closure. My children will never have that closure. It has ruined them for the rest of their life. Emotionally and mentally, it has ruined them. I have to now listen to my daughter at night crying while she sleeps. And all she says is she's apologising to her father for not making it to him. And I have to listen while she's sleeping, speaking to her father, that she is sorry that she didn't get to say goodbye. And, all we asked was for a bit of compassion. All we asked was for an hour to view their father's body so that they could say goodbye, because now I have to think of the effects that it's going to have on them for the rest of their lives. And they didn't allow them to say goodbye.
And that is the mother who's pleaded guilty to escaping isolation with her children. They were going to view their father's body before his tangi